Welcome back to the Fantasy Price Check. Today we're going to be talking about late round running backs that you should be targeting in your 2020 fantasy football drafts. In the last video that we did, we checked in on running backs that are being drafted in rounds 5 and 6, which I'll link up in the info card above and then down in the description. The running backs that we recapped in that video are Raheem Mostert, DeAndre Swift, Kareem Hunt, and Ronald Jones. In this video, we're going to take a look at some running backs that you're able to draft after round 7. If you're new to the channel, we grade player ADPs based on whether they are overpriced, underpriced, or fairly priced. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit that subscribe button down below. And before we get into these late round running backs, if you haven't drafted yet and you want to check out our rankings, head over to fantasypricecheck.com. We have our rankings available for $5 if you want to help support the channel. Let's get into these late round running backs. The first late round running back that I have for you is Zack Moss. Zack Moss is currently the RB40 off the board, being drafted with the 109th overall pick, which puts him right at the back of the 9th round. The camp reports on Zack Moss have been phenomenal. Zack Moss is going to inherit the Frank Gore role, which means a minimum of 160 carries and all of the goal line work. However, the upside for Zack Moss is even bigger if he's able to beat out Devin Singletary on the depth chart and become the lead back for the Bills. If that happens, you're talking 200 to 225 carries, and this guy could catch too. Zack Moss could have 30 receptions on top of the rushing volume that he's going to get. During his last year at college, he had 28 receptions for 388 receiving yards, so he has very solid receiving skills. He's also better in pass protection than Devin Singletary, which gives him an advantage to get more snaps. PFF also graded Zack Moss as the best running back in this class. He had a better grade than Jonathan Taylor, CEH, J.K. Dobbins, and DeAndre Swift. He was also extremely productive in college. He had 3 straight seasons with over 1,000 rushing yards. Check out this guy's highlights at Utah and you'll come away extremely impressed. If there's one running back that's being drafted after round 8 that I want to get on my teams, it's Zack Moss. The next guy on this list is Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay is currently the RB35 being drafted off the board with the 88th overall pick, which puts him right in the middle of the 8th round. We all know that Melvin Gordin is the lead back on the Broncos, but the Broncos are going to give Phillip Lindsay a good amount of carries because he's an explosive runner. Phillip Lindsay has put up back-to-back seasons with over 1,000 yards, at least 30 receptions, and at least 7 touchdowns, and the guy is still not getting the credit that he deserves. But yes, we are going to see the carry volume come down because of the addition of Melvin Gordin. Phillip Lindsay isn't getting 200 plus carries this year, but he should be able to get 10 to 12 carries per game and add 1 to 2 receptions per game. I think you'll see Phillip Lindsay with about 175 carries and a total of 200 touches, and based upon how efficient he's been, he should be able to get 1,000 total yards. If you could get a running back that gets 1,000 total yards and scores 6 plus touchdowns in round 8, that's going to be a win. The Broncos are also putting some respect on Phillip Lindsay's name by naming him the co-starter with Melvin Gordin. I think you're looking at a 60-40 split between Melvin Gordin and Phillip Lindsay, and that's not going to be bad for Phillip Lindsay owners. The next late round running back up is Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson is currently the RB43 being drafted off the board with the 111th overall pick, which puts him right at the beginning of the 10th round. What's crazy is that this guy only had 77 total touches in college, but this guy's electric and he's a playmaker. He averaged 11 yards per carry on 33 carries and 19 yards per reception on 44 receptions. Antonio Gibson could be an Alvin Kamara type of player. The Redskins can use this guy all over the field and have him catch tons of passes out of the backfield. Now that Darius Geis has been released, Antonio Gibson has been running with the ones during training camp, and he's been talked up for what he's been able to do. If you take Antonio Gibson, you're going to have to be patient. Don't give up on him too early. It's going to take some time for him to develop. I'm not expecting Antonio Gibson to ball out week 1. During Alvin Kamara's rookie season, he did nothing through the first 4 weeks, and then after week 4, it was off to the races. The last late round running back that I want to throw out there is Boston Scott. Boston Scott is currently being drafted as the RB51 with the 144th overall pick, which puts him right at the back of the 12th round. Boston Scott is more of a PPR play, but he still has some value in standard leagues and half-point PPR leagues. Boston Scott will have a Darren Sproles role for the Eagles, and I expect him to have very similar production to a guy like Tariq Cohen. He's a cheaper version of Tariq Cohen that you're able to get 3 to 4 rounds later. Boston Scott is currently the RB2 on the Eagles depth chart, and Miles Sanders is currently dealing with a moderate hamstring injury. You may see Boston Scott get a good amount of usage early on in the season. Even if Miles Sanders is fully healthy, Boston Scott should be able to get 6 to 8 carries per game and 4 to 6 targets per game. I believe that Boston Scott's floor is 400 rushing yards and 400 receiving yards. 800 total yards from a running back that you're able to draft in the 13th round is solid production. And if the Eagles have to lean on Boston Scott more because of Miles Sanders' hamstring injury, there's even more upside for Boston Scott. I know it's a small sample size, but from weeks 14 to 16 when the Eagles were using both Miles Sanders and Boston Scott out of the backfield, Boston Scott was on pace for 1,100 total yards, but that's when the Eagles' wide receivers were depleted. Still, if you're able to draft Boston Scott as an RB5 in the 13th round of any type of PPR format, that's a solid pick. So my 4 late round running backs to target are Zack Moss, Antonio Gibson, Phillip Lindsay, and Boston Scott. If you like these picks, hit that thumbs up for me, and I'm going to be throwing up the full price checks for Zack Moss and Boston Scott, so be sure to check those out. And if you want our full rankings, head over to fantasypricecheck.com. They're available for $5, and it's a way for you to support the channel. And don't forget to subscribe below. I'll see you guys on the next one.